Hey, what's that going on? What is going on, eh? My name's Tim. You're watching Lost in Law. We're just doing a quick political news roundup video today. I haven't talked about politics in a right minute, so today, let's get into it. We'll have a couple of drinks and let's uh let's have some fun. Um Everyone's seen this video, everyone knows where I'm going the start to start with this. I thought it was a fun thing to talk about. Milei winning the presidency in Argentina. That's that's amazing. Um, let's have a quick look at. Well, let's watch the video first. I want to make a couple of remarks about what's going on in there, and because I'm sure everyone's curious as to what's driving this trend. Why is this right wing populist movement suddenly taking over? And I mean, the short answer of that is because what they're saying is what people want. That's the short answer, but there's a lot more complexity and nuance to that. But let's just get into it. I can make that bigger, and let's have a listen first. I've got English translation, but it's the YouTube auto-generated subtitles, so they're not going to be nearly as accurate. I don't think you can hear that. One second. There we go.
El Estado es el problema. Ustedes, si se fijan acá, tienen la gran raviolada que es el Estado, el gran curro y la fuente de la decadencia argentina, que es el Estado. Esta es la foto del Estado que tenemos hoy. Si nos movemos hacia aquella pizarra, Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera.
¡Afuera!
Aunque te resistas. Vamos a seguir por acá. Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación, algo bien del sector privado. Nada bueno salió del sector público.
¡Afuera!
Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social,
¡Afuera!
Ministerio de Educación, adoctrinamiento, afuera. Ministerio de Transporte, afuera. Ministerio de Salud, afuera. Ministerio de Desarrollo Social, afuera. ¿Cómo queda el Estado? Ministerio de Capital Humano, Ministerio de Infraestructura, Ministerio de Economía, Ministerio de Justicia.
Oh, that's amazing. Anyways, I don't think the translation is quite picking that up correctly. It keeps translating as outside, but I think the context is like when you tell your dog, you open a door and you're like, and you yell at your dog, out, out with you. I think that's what it's supposed to mean or translate as. And so he's going down, he's going, out. The Ministry of Diversity and Equity and whatever else, out. Ministry of Education, Indoctrination, out. So we'll have a lot of fun with that. Anyways, I think that video should be seen as by every political candidate. I'll just kill the desktop audio so we don't get any interference, but yeah, that's I just wanted to show that again. I think everyone who runs for political office should see that video. They should sign a declaration that video is hilarious, but also good policy. And the reason that this kind of stuff resonates with people is because no one thinks the government spending money is a good thing. At best, it is an evil that we tolerate. I guess there are some hardcore lefties out there that think that the government spending money is a good thing, but the government spending money, especially spending your money, it has a lot of side effects. One of them, the out of control government spending, is linked with inflation. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of left-wing friendly economists that are going to be like, well, inflation's actually a really complicated topic, and it's all about supply and demand, and there's still like supply issues, and after the waves of the bug went around. Baloney. To quote the great Judge Judy, baloney. It's pretty well known in economic circles that out of control government debt has negative pressures on your economy. One of those negative pressures is that it can when you're minting more money than the economy is responsible for accounting for, it makes each dollar that you mint worth less. You want to talk about supply and demand, basic supply and demand? That's it. We are minting money at a astonishing rate, and literally minting it, but also figuratively minting it by going deeper and deeper into public debt. And remember, the bonds that fuel those debt are coming due. They have a pretty long cycle in the Canadian economy, and I'm sure other economies too. But there's going to come due, and bond yields going up are usually a reflection of poor economic indicators. It means that people need a greater return in order to take greater risk. The other thing too is we're looking at a lot of left-wing economists will point to employment numbers. Employment numbers have been holding steady, unlike our recessive economies. Canada just released a news, they released an update today on our third quarter economic indicators. We contracted. Our economy went backwards last quarter. They then revised the second quarter, because I think when they published it, the second quarter contracted by 5%, something like that. They revised it to 1.4% expansion, which is it's happened. It happens, as more and more data comes in. But up until that revision, we were in the technical recession, and then we got a lecture last year about how a technical recession isn't a recession, and economists don't even use that as a term anymore. The whole idea that 2 consecutive quarters of economic retraction or contraction is a recession. Now they're just trying to downplay that language, but to be perfectly fair to the people at Statistics Canada, I don't think they're manipulating the data to cause the upward revision. I have a funny feeling that no one in Ottawa actually knows what number they'd have to tweak to make that happen, like in a way that no one would notice. Because if you go in and just change one of our our net exports of a certain classification of objects, if you just bump that number up, that makes our real GDP go up. We're an export-based country. But someone would notice that our exports suddenly shot up like 1,000,000% in this one specific item. So, as the saying goes, never attribute to malice which you can explain with incompetence. And I think that summarizes the Canadian economy quite well. So, anyways, the reason that this type of rhetoric is really hitting with the people is because we view the government spending as some sort of quagmire that never gets smaller. It's like when you put off cleaning your garage, and that mess never gets smaller. The job doesn't get easier with time. So the longer you put it off, the more work you're just going to have to do. Most people understand that. I think we don't give the average voter enough credit. They understand the basics of financial literacy and economics just through logic and reason, rational thinking. You got to remember that there's There's a lot of really loud political commentators that do not reflect the average voter. The average voter jumps in their vehicle in the morning, goes to work. They get stuck in traffic. They go to work. They come home stuck in traffic. They pick up the kids from, the after school, whatever after school program they're in. The kids then jump on their iPads or their Nintendo Switches or their, the TV or the computer, play Minecraft, Roblox, or whatever, and then that's it. They eventually pass out late in the night. Um, I think the average voter understands a lot more about the complexities of the economy than we give them credit for, and that's where someone like Milei can come in and start speaking to that common sense, that rationality. Right-wing populism has been around for as long as I've been alive. It's not a new thing. People in Ontario remember the Mike Harris days. He had a common sense revolution. Ralph Klein in Alberta, shout out to him. Of course, the Great Wall of Saskatchewan, Brad Wall. Um, you know, these are leaders who their conservative credentials were less than stellar. I think, especially on social conservative issues, there was a lot left to be desired from hardcore social conservatives, but they got the job done. They went in, they fixed up the economy, they got it roaring. Mike Harris made a lot of changes to Ontario that still endure to this day. Doug Ford is in that same vessel. Rob Ford was the one who brought the Ford name to prominence before him. They speak a different language than what most politicians do, and it really resonates. It resonates with a lot of people. This current wave, this current generation of right wing populism, is focusing a lot less on the common sense revolution, sort of language, and I mean, this is the TikTok generation. You're looking at it right now. Like, if let me play the end of this video. Right? And then he does the, you don't have to hear it. Just just watch the translation. Right? As he gives his big campaign slogan, long live damn freedom. We've become the catchy one-liner generation. The next generation after us is going to be the TikTok generation. I'm not sure if this was originally a TikTok video. Possibly it was on Instagram. I don't remember where it came from. Maybe Twitter. Doesn't matter. We are the TikTok generation because any video that lasts longer than 30 seconds we lose interest in and click off it. So this is the new brand of right-wing populism. Everything's got to be a slogan and a one-liner. In Canada, it's axe to tax. That's speaking in regards to the carbon tax. So that's Milei. The only other thing I have to say about his rise to prominence is, just like Bolsonaro in Brazil, I expect that he has to fight the deep state, the entrenched apparatus at every turn. Every single person he has to vet with the maximum. Like, we saw this the most under Donald Trump and his presidency. The snakes that hang around him because they knew he was going to win. They knew he was going to. But he was too trusting of the people who were in it for their own gain. It's really easy to see these. That's like, there's a lot of people who pretend to be right wing populists. We got a few of them here in Canada. I think Pierre Poilievre definitely qualifies as one of them. Don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure he's going to be our next prime minister, and he's a hell of a lot better than Justin Trudeau is. It remains to be seen if he'll be better than Stephen Harper. Or is Pierre going to have to moderate himself in order to win in the areas that count, like in Toronto and Montreal? So, that remains to be seen, how conservative he is. But the right-wing populists in Canada are former Conservative Party MPs. So, you were a member of the swamp for so long, and now you're claiming to want to drain the swamp. And the people see through it. The people see through you. You know? Um that's why there for every genuine person like Milei, there's gonna be 100 frauds. Um and I think his presidency is going to be fraught with all of those snakes and frauds just cozying up to him, convincing him that, yeah, I'm 100% on board with you, and then they're just in it for themselves. They don't believe in the vision. They won't stick around when things get tough, and they don't have principles to stand on, and so every decision you're going to see, they make the wrong decision. Hey, Pat, how you doing? Is that Pet or Pet? Oh, well, I think that's Pet. How you doing? Yeah, totally agree with that one. Um, did that happen? I'll have to see the video if that if anyone caught that on video, that'd be funny. Um, I hear only stories about Ralph Klein. He existed in a time before I lived in Alberta, but yeah. So anyway, well, good to have you hanging out in the chat. Let's move on to the next article I got here. Speaking of right wing populism, you knew this was coming up. Um, I'm not Dutch. I don't know how to pronounce this properly, so I'm just gonna call him Geert Wilders. I think it's Wilders actually. It's you're supposed to pronounce it like Wagner. I don't know. Now this is the Guardian, and I know what you're thinking, but it's always good to know. It's always good to know what the enemy is saying about you, because you can get a read. They have tells. You can get a read on what is frightening them. First of all, check out this author. Look at this guy here. He ooh boy. You know what? I bet you he talks with a lisp. I'm just gonna say that and leave it at that. He looks like the kind of just. He looks like a weak beta male. Yes, dear. Anyways, um, when you get an insight into their mind, and you find out what they're most scared of. And I'm not gonna read the whole article. If you want to find it, it's this opinion article in the Guardian. Geert Wilders' win shows we are in a new phase for the far right in Western Europe. Um, I don't have a problem with them. Like a lot of people seem to go out and simpy. Oh, he's not far right. Don't. Oh, that's not far right. No, let him call you far right. Embrace it. Don't apologize. This is why conservatives never win anything. Spend too busy trying to fight the labels. Embrace them. Call them anti-Semitic and also pervs. When's the last time you saw a liberal in Canada, a Democrat in the US, or Labour in the UK or Australia ever apologize for who they are? And believe me, they're the ones who should be. Anyways, the only part I wanted to highlight here is this opinion article from that guy. This is the part I'll highlight first. We've entered a new phase for far-right politics in Western Europe. Far-right parties are no longer languishing in the margins of politics, where they can be ignored or used by the right-wing political establishment. Not only is the far-right now part of the political mainstream, it is an increasingly dominant part of it. Aww. Are your labor national identity destructive policies not doing it anymore? Blame the far right. You know, it used to be a meme where you'd blame Stephen Harper for everything. Oh, don't worry. In Canada, we have Maxime Bernier. There, he's the far right for Canada. Um, but yeah, this article goes on to say that there's, how did we get here, and blaming a whole bunch of things, talking about the history of the far right in Europe and all of the different European countries that have right wing movements. They talk quite a bit about Italy. They had a right wing government there, for a pretty good right wing government there for a while. Good in that they're like strong conservative credentials. But anyways, well, and actually, Pat, I'm gonna kind of pump the brakes on that one a little bit, because the Dutch farmer protest actually started their own party, much like there's a federal party in Western Canada that is, well, Tamara Lich was part of the party before she got herself arrested. So, or she got arrested for whatever. She didn't get herself arrested. I don't think she did anything wrong, but she did get arrested. So, but she used to be part of one of those Western separatist parties. Yeah, and that came from the convoy, right? So, um, yeah, Tamara Lich. Anyways, so yeah, they're not tying those movements with the far right just yet. Like, they could characterize the movement as the far right, and hey, don't go simping for, don't simp, bad, no simping. And yes, the just like in the Netherlands, the Dutch farmers created their own political party, which did well in the election. In addition to the Wilders party, I forget what it's called. VVD, is that what it's called? Yeah, VVD party. Anyways, they go into two big reasons why this change has happened, and of course both reasons completely missed the mark. But you got to see how the spin cycle in their mind works to get to this. Now, you start good here, right? You identified the problem. And then they go to say, well, the right wings have adopted this nativist discourse. And that's the problem. As the center right parties started adopting similar nativist language. That's the core of the issue. See, this is, again, this is like fumbling at the 1 yard line, right? You catch, you're returning a 99-yard pick six, and you fumble it right at the 1 yard line, and this is it, right? They almost identified the correct issue, and then immediately pivot off it and go into something else. The second one, the second trend, according to this article, the mainstreaming and copying of their issues and political framings by traditional parties, far-right parties have continued to grow electorally. So this seems like a rip-off thing, right? So you have the center-right and you have the far-right, and the center-right is, oh man, their policies, we're just going to copy and rip them off. And that'll make us better, but it doesn't. It actually just makes them better. Gee, why would that be? Is it because, no, hang on. I think we can rationally work through this. Okay, so when you have a bunch of people running in an election, and they all say, here's the things I want to do, and the person who wins the election is the one who gets the most votes, and the person who says the far right things are the things we want to do, they get the most votes, they win the election. Oh, what would that mean? Oh man, it must be because of the center right, copied them, and people are just like, I don't like that the center right copied them. We're gonna go vote for the far right. See? Nope. Just missed the mark completely. This is the one where You ever have that moment? I don't know how many of my audience has ever taken public transit before, but you're waiting at the bus stop, or no, you're running up to the bus stop, and you see the bus a block away, and you are much further away from the bus stop than that, and you are running and you're waving and flailing your hands like some lunatic, and the bus just keeps going. That's the feeling I get right here when I read this article. So, and then of course Marine Le Pen over in France. I think she got a shout out in this article. She came pretty close. I mean, I knew she wasn't going to win because a lot of the people got scared of her and decided to go behind the other person. But I mean, she got to the runoff stage, so she was really close to getting it. Yeah, I think that's about as close as they'll get in France, though. France is an interesting place to study sometimes, but this is and this is a professor in the School of Public and International Affairs. Doesn't that just get you a BA in political science? Huh. University of Georgia. Well, I don't know what the School of Public and International Affairs. Yeah, that is not law school. I'm pretty sure that's not law school. I think that's just it's just where you get a political science degree from. Hmm. There might also be like policy and economics and maybe business. Or, yeah. Anywho, well, it doesn't say associate professor, so I'd assume that's a tenured professor, and so they likely have a PhD. Um, yeah, I don't know what any of that means, but no, whatever. I'm sure it's a good college. I'm sure. I'm sure that the Bachelor of Arts education from that college means a lot when you go to put it on your resume and try to get a real job. All right, let's pivot off Wilders for a second. I guess the final verdict. The final verdict for Wilders or Wilders or however you want to say his name. Um, he's gonna face much of the same problem. He's got to find a coalition partner, and I just can't see anyone willing to risk their political future in his favor. Um, I have heard that there is some internal strife among the center right coalition or the center right party. Which, if he won the center right coalition, yeah, if they did the center right far right coalition, that should be enough seats for them to win the majority in the Dutch Parliament or the Dutch legislature, whatever it's called. Um, so they might end up ousting their own center right leader. It's definitely possible. I wouldn't say it's probable. On the balance of probabilities, I'd have it as not less likely to happen than than not happening. So he is going to deal with the swamp. He's also got to deal with the fact that the European Union does exercise a lot of almost cooperative federalist power uh, over Europe. So there's people point to some of the most egregious and extreme positions in his former platform, and pretty sure they would not have a chance at succeeding. They'll get struck down as unconstitutional internally. They'll definitely get struck down as going against the European Charter of Human Rights or whatever they call it. So, hey, maybe a Nexit is coming up. I really don't expect them to win that referendum. Key to that referendum would be in controlling who's able to vote. There's certainly Not knowing anything about Netherlands election laws, I don't know how long you have to be living in the Netherlands to become a citizen, whether votes like that are restricted to citizens only, um, or even what the ID requirements for their elections are. But controlling the inability of the European Parliament to just flood the Netherlands with a bunch of sympathetic voters definitely would be something they'd have to take care of before they put that to the referendum. If he does end up forming a majority government with a coalition partner, you may very well see that referendum hit the floor at some point. Not this year, not next year. I think it would be at the most 3 years away. Or he would go. He'd wait until the next scheduled election, if they can last the entire 4 years or however many years a typical Dutch Parliament lasts. And then make it like kind of a ballot question when they have the next election. That would be the correct and that'd be the best play. And then you spend the next 2 years making very populist and popular policies to gain the support and trust of the electorate and the public and sell them on the Nexit. All right, next up, bringing this a little bit closer to home. We're going to talk about Daniel Smith invoking the Sovereignty Act. What exactly is the Sovereignty Act and what does it do? Well, I can only speak to it from the position of a law student. I am not a lawyer. I am not a constitutional lawyer. A very big book behind me here that's all about constitutional law. That book does not have the answer. There is a principle in there that I think comes into play, and I think that's what they were going for with this law. I did explain quite a bit about the interplay between provincial and federal powers when I did my video on the plastics ban, which, that video actually got a lot of views. I must have hit the algorithm for a little bit there because I got a lot of views on that video. It was either the Impact Assessment Act or the plastic ban video. I can't remember exactly which one, but it was one of the two videos. One of them I think it was the Impact Assessment. It really hit the algorithm. I know I had my video out before Ian Runkle put his out. I kind of use him as a shout out to Ian Runkle, by the way, Runkle of the Bailey. But I use him as the kind of the weather vane of content that is, substantial, pressing and substantial. So the fact that I got my video out I think 3 or 4 days before he had his video out, he does a lot more editing in his videos than I do, I think. So, one of the advantages of this slim operation I run is that I can go live in a second when something breaks. I really should try to do that more often and just maybe start hitting the algorithm. But anyways, what is the Sovereignty Act? If this were a Jeopardy question, the answer would be, this is an act panned by many as being purely symbolic and having no constitutional significance at all. In fact, Professor Laurie Williams, she's a frequent commentator on Alberta politics for Canadian news outlets. She's a professor in Calgary. Not the U of C, though, a different, smaller, like, trade school kind of thing. She often gives commentary on this type of stuff, and, she went on CTV News and said, there's not really much that this does. She, I don't think, is a lawyer. I don't know much about her background. I think she teaches political science. I don't know if she's a lawyer or not. That's not to say that she doesn't know what the law is. That I'm pretty sure having I think she is a doctor. She has a PhD in either political science or public studies or policy studies or something like that. She's not by any means a dumb person. I just think that not understanding the idea of federal paramountcy and the division of powers leaves you at a bit of a handicap when it comes to understanding what this Sovereignty Act is meant to do. So, paramountcy is the idea that when two valid laws exist and operate within the same area, the federal law should prevail. Now, in order for both laws to be valid, they have to be regulating. They have to be constitutional intra vires under the assigned divisions of power under the Canadian Constitution, Section 91 and Section 92. 91, I believe, is the federal power, 92 being the provincial powers. It is possible that you legislate validly within your assigned head of power, and that your bill just tangentially or indirectly affects the other area of power. That doesn't automatically make it ultra vires or unconstitutional. Incidental effects, as long as the pith and the substance of the law is valid and well within your constitutional boundaries, then the law is good. So that inevitably ends up causing problems, where you can have a provincial law that overrides federal law. That means that you end up going to court. And the court will assess the validity of both laws. If the laws are both valid, then a court will rule so, and the federal law will triumph over the provincial law. And so, in federal paramountcy, the provincial law that is trumped over is of no effect to the extent that it is incompatible. There is a really complex test that is applied. I don't think it bears going into here because we don't have any scenario to work with. Only one side has legislated this in anticipation of future federal legislation. And so what the Sovereignty Act is designed to do is create that clash, that double aspect doctrine where there's two competing laws within the constitutionally valid areas. Certainly Alberta's constitutional boundaries allow it to regulate power, environment, all of those things are well within the province's ability to regulate. The federal government regulates things that are of national interest, national concern doctrine, that's Crown-Zellerbach, and the Greenhouse Gas Pricing Protection Act. Polluters Pricing Act. Yeah, Greenhouse Gas Polluters Pricing Act, not protection. The Canadian Environmental Protection Act, the legislation that we panned in the federal plastics ban, was ruled to be a use of the criminal power of the federal government. The federal government controls the criminal law powers. One of the, I think, so there's some case law on this. I think Canadian Western Bank is a good one. There's also, there's the Quebec versus Bell Canada. Quebec versus Canada, I think. In which Quebec attempted to pass workers' legislation that applied to federally regulated companies, like National Telecoms, any of the nationally regulated railways are a good one, right? Any of the national banks. That's why Canadian Western Bank is a good case law on that. The provincial legislation was intended to extend labor rights and labor legislation to these federal workers. Of course, the federal government has their own labor legislation by necessity. And so the Supreme Court found that while the Quebec law is valid for Quebec workers and Quebec, provincial jurisdiction, the law frustrates the federal labor legislation in this scenario. And so the court said that, the Quebec law doesn't apply to the federally regulated workers. In Canadian Western Bank, I think the issue was there was provincial legislation on insurance, and the bank was selling insurance. So the bank was forced to comply with the provincial insurance regulations, but then because the banks are federally regulated, and the federal government had a law that, it didn't apply I think the court ruled in that. I'd have to look at the decision again, but I do think the court ruled against the province in that one, saying that federal paramountcy existed. There is another doctrine called interjurisdictional immunity that has really fallen by the wayside. It seems like federal paramountcy is the more dominant doctrine right now. So, with that background in mind, that's what the Sovereignty Act is trying to do. It's trying to create these conflicts. Now, absent of the conflict, whatever law legislates in that area is good law, and you have to comply with it. We're going to get to Saskatchewan in a moment where we talk about that. What this does, however, is this creates another good example of the double legislating in an area, the Civil Forfeiture Act of Ontario. That's the case, R versus Chatterjee. The Crown versus Chatterjee is the case on that one. And there is a criminal forfeiture in the criminal code. There's also the civil forfeiture. And res judicata protects you from going under both of them in the same case. But if the federal government doesn't pursue it, then the Ontario government can come in and pursue it. So those two laws are allowed to stand. They don't interfere with one another. It's either one or the other. And it is not impossible to comply with both laws. So that is the double aspect doctrine, I believe, is where the two valid laws can coexist without interfering with each other. Then both are allowed to stand. They don't interact with one another. So I think Chatterjee is the case authority on that one. In this case, though, we're purposely creating that conflict. So the Alberta gets the chance to lay their claim, lay their stake in the sand. You'll notice when I did my other videos that environment is not delegated to any federal or provincial. The Founding Fathers saw fit that there were elements of the environment that apply to both. There is the national concern doctrine, but there's also the environment generally is provincial. Things like waste management, protection, like littering, right? That's all provincial jurisdiction. But there is no division of power that says this area government gets jurisdiction over the environment. Because it was supposed to be this idea of cooperative federalism where the federal and the provincial governments would work together and make laws that covered both sides. That's why the Canadian Environmental Protection Act is allowed to exist, while at the same time the provincial government can fine you for littering. Those laws don't conflict with one another. They regulate different areas of the environment. They're both allowed to stand, and they both are good law. This obviously was brought in the background for this particular issue. Ottawa has published green electricity generation standards, targets that have to be met by 2035. Places like Ontario and Quebec, which get a lot of their power from hydroelectric, Ontario gets a lot from nuclear generation. The provincial Liberal government before Doug Ford came to power, they went on a war against coal and natural gas power plants. So, most of the power in Ontario is provided by hydroelectric anyways. Next up, I think, is nuclear. And if it's not nuclear, it was coal. It's now nuclear. If that's the case in Ontario, where 14 million people, they can afford to make that kind of investment. Nuclear power in Alberta has been kicked around quite a bit. The problem is you need a lot of water to run nuke plants, and the Great Lakes of Ontario are a pretty good source of water. Anywhere there's a really big source of water is also not where our cities are. Not to mention, nuclear power plants are really hard to build, maintain, and even to ship the uranium fuel rods in. It's a really big deal. So nuclear power has been explored in Alberta, but it's never never really gotten off the ground that much. Small modular reactors have gotten more popularity. They kind of, they do away with some of the biggest disadvantages of nuclear power. But I think that technology is still pretty experimental, still new. It's not quite caught on just yet. I know we've experimented with hydrogen power, but again, experimental. It's not definitely not generating electricity for us right now. Alberta's got a lot of flat prairie and a lot of wind, so we do have a ton of wind turbines. They don't do very much for us. We also got a lot of like wide open. Like Calgary's a very sunny city. Got a lot of wide open areas for solar power. Again, it's just not doing too much for us. We have also got long, cold winters. That doesn't help. So a lot of Alberta's electricity is generated by natural gas, which is very handy because Alberta is also a very large producer of natural gas. So that works. We make so much of the stuff that we can't actually burn it fast enough. Like we use natural gas to heat our homes, to cook, right? We have a lot of natural gas stoves, and then we use it for power generation, and we still have a lot more to sell after that. So, we have a ton of natural gas here in Alberta. So yeah, the net zero electricity requirement for 2035 means that those natural gas plants have to out, which is great for provinces that don't really use them. It's not so great for the provinces that do use them. Yeah, again, Sask is going to have a huge problem with the population. And one nuke plant would probably keep all of Saskatchewan on the grid, but you'd have to upgrade the entirety of the transmission system to support it. So, and then one ice storm just completely devastates the whole province. So, not looking good. Not looking good. I don't know. I should Google that sometime. Like, what is Saskatchewan's total electrical consumption per month or whatever? And because I think oh man, don't quote man. I think the nuclear power station in Bruce, I think it posted something like 75 megawatts. Don't quote me on that one though. I'm not entirely sure. And I don't know if that's max capacity or its usual capacity. But anyways, the that's the background, and so of course, Alberta says, well, you're forcing us. The penalty for not complying with the 2035 net zero target is that you'll get a ton of penalties and fines. So what Alberta's doing is it's carving out this area of law that says that those fines you're allowed to operate without getting fined. Then the federal government says if you operate, you get fined. Those conflict with each other. They go to court and they fight over which one has jurisdiction. The advantage, I think, this is a legal theory. I'm not a lawyer. I'm definitely not a constitutional lawyer. This is just my legal theory or my legal opinion, which doesn't hold a lot of merit or weight. But I think that was the purpose of the Sovereignty Act, was to create these conflicts and force the federal government to take the province to court and deal with it there, rather than waiting for the federal target to come into effect, having to comply with it, then suing over it, and waiting 7 years for the Supreme Court to decide on it. I mean, how long did it take them to decide on the Impact Assessment Act? So, I think that's the play. I think that's what they were going for. They're taking advantage of the idea of paramountcy and double aspect. They may end up in a losing scenario, but they have to go to court first, as opposed to comply first, then go to court and hope that the court rules with you. You can also make a stronger policy argument when you do your oral submission to the Supreme Court. You're saying, look, this regime has been in place for this many years. We'd have this quite unduly harsh burden in order to move over and suddenly comply with this federal legislation. And so you get that advantage too. That might, say, tip the scale if the court was 50-50 on something. And so, again, I think that's the play they're getting at. It makes sense legally, but I don't know. I might want to talk to one of my constitutional professors and see what they think about it. the whole, I mean, the whole theory that this rests on is that the laws that both are passing are valid legislation. Um, it remains to be seen if the Alberta government can pass that law and apply it to their electricity generators. I also think that that's why they had to create that Crown Corporation, because private sector workers, they wouldn't be able to enjoy the same protection as, say, provincial government workers. Um, so I really don't know in that case or in that instance. Um, I'm never happy with the idea that the government creates, or publicizes an industry, right? The opposite of privatization. Um, I'm never thrilled or happy with it, but I do think it's a legal necessity because the private sector is going to look at the incoming federal targets and like, well, we don't want to deal with this. We're just going to comply. I mean, we have to. So yeah, I think the creation of the Crown Corp is going to have to be a mandatory thing. Um, you asked about the APP. I don't expect that to go anywhere. There are far too many public sector workers in Alberta that are just, and they're well funded by the labor movement, the unions. I just, I imagine that referendum will fail. Um, yeah. I don't know if I mean, well, and Pierre Poilievre came out against it, and that didn't make any sense to me. Pierre Poilievre said that Alberta should remain in the Canadian Pension Plan, and I don't know why he said that, other than the obvious reason is that he's got to bow to his Ottawa masters. So I don't know. Um, that's I don't see that going anywhere, unfortunately. But I do think that yeah, that's. Anyways, I've kept this on the screen long enough. I didn't even read or go through it or anything. Can probably see if I can zoom that in. Um. Well, there's the political fight, right? Wilkinson is the Liberal Party uh, natural resources minister, or yeah, energy minister. Apologies, he's the energy minister. So yeah, that's the Liberal government's crony that says that hey, you shouldn't do this. Well, we don't care what you think, apparently. Um, yeah, that's it right there. The non-compliance doesn't apply to private companies or people. Yeah. Um, so it's gonna have to create this Crown Corp in order to have power generating plants fall under its jurisdiction. That way, then they can validly legislate on that file. Um, hmm, hmm, hmm. It has drawn criticism because questions of constitutionality, or sorry, it drew criticism and questions of constitutionality because it grants the province the power to reject federal laws or regulations deemed harmful to the province. I think again that's the media just not understanding the intricacies of the law. I mean, I hardly understand it, and I'm trying to learn the law right now. So, I I don't know if they've reached out or talked to a constitutional expert, and that constitutional expert, I'm not sure. I would like to see their credentials in litigating this type of stuff because, um, the doctrine of paramountcy is not very often tested in the Supreme Court, and so there's not a lot of lawyers who've actually have experience in bringing these arguments forth. They can say what they think the law is or what the law would do, but until the Supreme Court makes a decision on it, it's just an opinion. So, oh, and Environment Minister Stephen Gilbert, um, that's that's the guy that has a lot of the ties to Greenpeace, I think, or the World Wildlife Fund or something like that. I forget exactly which one, but he's the Green New Deal person in Canada. Um, And yeah, the draft regulations were released in August for this net zero in 2035, but they're not actually a law yet. So right now it's it's an empty part. Um, I think honestly, Daniel Smith's play in the grander scheme of things is he's trying to keep Take Back Alberta happy. That's it. There's nothing more to it than that. They just took over her board, so yeah. Take Back Alberta is a activist organization here in Alberta. They were founded. They kind of run on two like kind of main fork issues. They were kind of founded on the back of that COVID lockdown. Um, and the people who stood up and opposed that. Lately, they've been going after the whole indoctrination in schools issue. It's the issues that rile people up, but we'll see how long they can hang on to that momentum because once Smith legislates on it, then what? What do they do after that? Last month, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe said his province would stop collecting the carbon tax on natural gas. This is going to be a problem for him. Without a law that says don't collect it, the natural gas utility providers who would stick it on your natural gas bill, collect it and remit it to Ottawa. Ottawa has severe penalties for people who don't do that. And without a law that conflicts the federal government law that it subjects these people to these penalties is valid and good law. You can challenge the constitutionality of it, but you're still going to get hit with the fine first. Or I think even jail time is on the table for that. And again, that is the valid exercise of the federal government's criminal law power. So, yikes. I don't know if that's going to go very well for him. Here's the other thing. Saskatchewan's election is coming up next year. I think it's in the fall. I think it's the fall. But yeah, Saskatchewan has a scheduled election next year. I haven't seen anything to indicate that Scott Moe's going to lose the election, but, that's a huge but, this might factor into it. And then, of course, for those who don't know, what sparked all of this was Trudeau announced that the carbon tax wouldn't be collected on heating oil. He exempted heating oil, which is primarily used in Eastern Canada and almost non-existently used in Western Canada. We prefer natural gas. I guess some people still use home heating oil. I know my old place did where I was growing up, but it was not something that... I think also, too, we were so poor and broke, I think we couldn't afford the heating oil, so we ended up using diesel. I really don't know how good idea it is to use diesel in a heating oil furnace to heat your house. But, I mean, I didn't die. Yay. So, and the goal, Trudeau's stated goal, was he's giving more time for people to transition off the home heating oil into different heating sources to upgrade their units and their systems. I don't know. I mean, I do think he's undermined. So when the GGPPA went through the Supreme Court and was found as being constitutional for the federal government, one of the big arguments was that the uniformity was a major pillar of that framework, that legal framework. The uniformity doctrine that the court analyzed was the idea that if the carbon tax was in one province but not in another, all the companies would just move provinces and still pollute. That pollution could then travel back to the province where the companies came from. So the whole point of and again that's the national concern doctrine when it comes to the peace order and good government clause of the division of power in the Canadian Constitution. Um, in order for something to be a national concern, it has to be an issue that crosses provincial boundaries, that knows no boundaries, for lack of a better term. Um, so you see the idea of carbon dioxide pollution and carbon emissions, um, using the government's own words, by the way. The carbon emissions are, you emit in one province, then they'll have effects in the other provinces. So that meets the national concern doctrine. The other thing, too, was this idea of uniformity, because if it's something that the provinces could act on in concert and cooperating with the federal government on, then there would be no need to go to court, right? It's just like having a mediated settlement out of court, right? An out-of-court settlement. And so if the provinces were willing to act in that regard under the national concern doctrine, then you wouldn't need the court to override the provinces. They would just work together on the issue. So that, again, the uniformity and the inability of one province to participate was the reason that the federal court imposed the GGPPA on all of the provinces. The other thing too was that it set this like minimum standard, and the provinces are still free to exceed that standard. So now that the minimum standard has been cut out from the bottom of the Atlantic Canada, doesn't that defeat the whole argument that the federal government made in determining that it was constitutional? Who knows? You might be able to bring that one into the Supreme Court and say, hey, you ruled and you said that these things were true, and now that they're not true, we need you to rule again. There's been a very material change in the in an aspect of the. Now, this is as I understand, this is a temporary measure, and so it'll be moot by the time it ever gets to the Supreme Court. Yeah, so. And I know why Trudeau won't carve out the natural gas exemption, because it just completely undermines the legislation. Can't pass a law and then say, well, now I'm just going to pass a whole bunch of like individual exemptions. That's not a good way to do law, and that's a great way to have your law just completely annihilated. So I know why he doesn't want to do it. It's pretty obvious why he doesn't want to do it. It's pretty clear that he doesn't care about the West, so he doesn't need the West to be prime minister. The people in Vancouver don't care. The people in Toronto and Quebec don't care, and the people in Canada might appreciate it. Although we'll get to our last article in a second here. Sorry, I got in 2 articles, and we'll have a closer look at that. But yeah, that's all there is on on Saskatchewan. Or sorry, on Alberta. Let's head over to Saskatchewan. I alluded to it before. He's being pretty defiant. He's saying that they don't expect that there's going to be. They don't think the federal government has the cojones to follow through on their threat. Which is an entirely different position than saying that you have legal immunity, as just saying that you have ballsy immunity. So, Canada's trying to be net zero just like California. No, we're trying to actually do better than California. California's got a huge smoking problem, if you don't know. Also, California has a ton of coal gas plants, or coal-fired electrical generation plants. I'm gonna slap myself for that one. What's a coal? That's like a fully semi-automatic gun. What's a coal gas plant? Ugh. Disgusted with myself. Alright. Not much to talk about here. Not much to talk about here. They have introduced Oh, I didn't realize they brought in legislation. Okay, that changes it. Okay, because yeah, now they have the 2 valid conflicting laws. Hmm. See, this is why you read the articles. This is why the article was very helpful and important. By passing a law in that says that the Sask Energy, which is a crown corporation, it's the same thing that Alberta was proposing, shielding the executives and the employees from the federal government law. Okay, now the federal government has to take the Saskatchewan government to court. Now the federal government may win an injunction. I don't know though. Like, it's really hard to predict where that would go. Even if they do win the injunction, I do expect that would immediately be appealed. It would be an interlocutory appeal, and so of course you would need leave of the court to appeal it. I think the government would file that with the federal court, just like the plastic ban was filed in the federal court, I think. I'm not entirely sure where they'd file that. But, yeah. That's a big change, so, is it going to be effective? That remains to be seen. I think that, the carbon tax has already been ruled as constitutional and intra vires for the federal government, so that's without question. It's valid law. The only question, and I think this is going to get answered in the affirmative, is whether the federal government has that power to apply the criminal law sanctions on the provincial energy. Now, federal paramountcy, I said, was superseding interjurisdictional immunity. Interjurisdictional immunity would be applicable in this case. It goes both ways. If federal government legislates over top of provincial legislation, whatever jurisdiction is valid for that application of those two laws, the other one is just inoperative. It doesn't exist. Now, like I said, the court have moved away from the doctrine of interjurisdictional immunity. Maybe this is the Saskatchewan government's attempt to bring it back. I just don't think that that's going to go well for them. I think the Supreme Court's been pretty clear they don't want to go back to that doctrine. So I think this is this is quite a bit different from what Alberta's trying to do, because the law that Alberta's opposing doesn't exist yet. And when it does exist, it will not have been it wouldn't have been found to be constitutional by the Supreme Court. It will have been untested. So, yeah. That's an interesting one. Anyways, that's yeah, and Justin Trudeau's just like, yeah, what are you gonna do? We own the law, so yeah, we'll see. That'll be honestly, if the federal government wants to send in the RCMP to arrest the Minister of Sask Energy, that would be one heck of a firestorm of public uproar. That's why I think that Scott Moe's banking on the idea that Justin Trudeau does not do it. Because if he wants Convoy 2.0, that's exactly how he gets Convoy 2.0, right? I wish I had the meme I could play, the Archer meme, right? Do you want ants? Because that's how you get ants. Yeah, you want a convoy? That's how you get a convoy. All right, the last article, the last thing I want to talk about tonight before I get out of here. The poll numbers. The Liberals and the NDP are statistically tied in ballot support, while the Conservatives are way above. These are, so you're looking at a pretty good cross-section of all the federal parties in play here, right? Conservative Party, Liberal Party, New Democrat Party, which is our version of like the Bernie Sanders and the AOCs for my American audience. In the UK, this would be the Labour Party, and that would be like the Liberal Democrats in Australia and the UK. And then, of course, you got your Conservative Party, which is sometimes known as the Liberal Party. It really depends on, in Australia, I think that the right-wing party is called the Liberal Party. The idea of, like, liberal freedoms, that kind of thing. Back when liberal used to mean the party of liberty. That was a long time ago. Yeah, the Bloc Québécois is a Quebec only. They're like a pro-separatist party, but Quebec separation hasn't been an issue in over 20 years, maybe 30 years. Um, 95, I think, was the last referendum, or maybe 97. Anyways, yeah. So almost 30 years now that this hasn't been like an issue that's been at the forefront of Canadian politics. They still are a regional representative party. They represent Quebec interests in the parliament. Quebec is Canada's second largest province, and our legislature has a population uh, uh, a population parity breakdown where every federal riding is about 100,000 people. And so, being the second most populous province gives the Bloc Québécois quite a number of seats they can contest. I think it's like 76 or 78 out of the 338 seats in our parliament. The Green Party used to be a single issue party. They're similar to many Green parties around the world. Uh, they have this. I wonder if Green parties have like some sort of international coalition. I think it'd be illegal to have an official like international Green Party, because that would be like a international interference with domestic politics. But I wonder if they have some sort of like gentlemen's club consortium or something. Consortium. Um, but yeah, they used to be single issue. They're still kind of about the whole pro environment. They occupy this weird part of the political spectrum. Their MPs, when they do get into parliament, sometimes vote with the Conservative Party. But if it's anything about the environment, then they definitely go like hardcore NDP left. Um, but on other like fiscal issues, they tend to be a little bit more conservative, or AKA where the Liberals used to be back in the 90s. The People's Party I mentioned before, that's Maxime Bernier, who lost the leadership of the Conservative Party in 2018, took his ball, screwed off, and created the People's Party. That was the party that Viva Frei ran for. He ran in Quebec. He ran for this party. They are a right-wing populist party. The problem is that the living standard in Canada is so good. Like, as much as we like to think that there's a problem, um, in Canada, we actually have it pretty good. Most people are employed. Um, the inflation is high. It's not out of control. It's not like Argentina for sure. Um, it definitely wasn't like the austerity that Italy was subjected to, which caused the rise of their right wing. So, I don't see and Maxime Bernier himself is he's got a big ego problem. Like that's his party. He's the guy. He's trying to be the right wing populist, but he's a former Conservative Party MP. So there's a limit to how much I'm willing to accept his right wing populist credentials when he used to be a member of the Swamp. So, and of course, Conservative Party is Pierre Poilievre's party. If you don't know, that's where Pierre Poilievre is right now. But you can see that they're running at 40%, which is majority territory. The way that the multi-party system works in our first past the post system, we don't have mixed member proportional. So when you win any one of those, the person who gets the most votes more than anyone else in one of those one chunk ridings of 100,000 people, you win that riding. Then you go sit in our parliament. We have 338 ridings, 338 MPs. If you win a majority of those 338 seats, you are a majority government. You can see that if you have 5% across the board, and that's your national average, and the best you're doing is 25% in any single riding, then you're not going to win. You'll have no seats. And you're definitely not going to get that proportional representation that says you get 5% of the seats. So we're not like the Netherlands in that regard. Like we don't have. Actually, I don't even know if that's the system that I know Germany uses a mixed member proportional type system. Australia has ranked ballot, I believe, which makes a lot of other weird things happen. Under ranked ballot, you never, and this is the political commentator and me coming out. I know these things. I know that when you run in a ranked ballot system and you're not polling at 50%. You don't want to be there. You don't. If it's ranked ballot and you're in first place, but you're not gonna get 50+1, you'll lose the election because everyone else is gonna gang up against you. So that's what happened to Maxime Bernier. He was leading the 2018 leadership race for the Conservative Party. Andrew Scheer was second. But what happened was Maxime Bernier was like 36%. He was way off of that 50%. And so as they started going deeper and deeper and deeper into I think there was like 17 or 16 people ran in that leadership race. So as they're going to the next round, dropping off the lowest ballot performers and, recalculating the votes, Andrew Scheer pulls ahead right at the last round because everyone wanted to gang up against Maxime Bernier. Maxime Bernier also pissed off the dairy cartel in Quebec. We have this thing called supply management, which keeps the... it's exactly what it sounds like. It is the government control over the supply of our farming products, especially dairy and poultry. So that it means that cheap American stuff cannot flood our market, but also that the profit margins for farmers in Quebec are pretty set. So, first past the post just means that all the parties compete for votes. Whoever gets the most is the one who wins. If there's a tie, they flip a coin after the recount. And yes, I'm not joking. They literally will flip the coin. I think the U.S. has that too, at like the municipal level or the state level, where they've had to do coin flips. That's pretty common actually to break ties. Anyways, so sitting at this magical 40% number is the number that you would need to get in a national election to secure a majority government. That is 50% plus one of the 338 seats. That would mean that you're able to govern with impunity because, and in Canada we have very strict party discipline. It's a really big deal when people vote against the party. It makes national headlines for a week. In fact, we had one today. The NDP voted against the Liberals' economic update bill because they argued that there was no measures or no commitments to help Indigenous people. Again, this is the AOC party, if you're my American audience, or the Labour Party in the UK and Australia. So these are the people who are always, they're always fighting those social justice issues. So that's the way it breaks down. So the PPC would get wiped out, even though they're at 2%. They'd get not one seat at that number. They've actually gone down in their support too. Same with the Green Party; their support's gone down. When people are uncertain who they want to vote for of the big three, they start flowing to those smaller parties. When that certainty is there, when people start coalescing around a pretty clear winner, you'll see support for the smaller parties drop. That's just a basic law of running multi-party first past the post systems here. The Green Party currently has 3 seats, I think, or maybe 2 in an independent, sort of. They can't keep themselves out of trouble. Elizabeth May is probably the best well-known Green Party MP. She's out of the Vancouver Islands, Saanich Gulf Islands, I think it's called. Which is like the area around Victoria and Vancouver. It's like the islands off of the coast of British Columbia. They're good for a couple of seats because they do well. They have local candidates who are very popular, and they just have good demographics where they put their candidates. Shout out to Cress, by the way. I think Cress out in where Cress hangs out in Ontario. I think she's been a stated supporter of the Green Party. I'm not sure though. I think she didn't like the local candidate, but typically supports the party overall. Anyways, the regional party, the Bloc Québécois, it's hard to kind of gauge their support because it's so regionalized, and so it's the thing that those people care about that really gets them going. So, yeah. Anyways, the NDP is starting to rise too. They've been stuck at that under 20% for quite a while. It's the Liberal Party collapse And you'll see with this graph here, you'll see their collapse over time. 2015 here at the end of the scale is when Justin Trudeau won his election over Stephen Harper. And then 2019 is when he got reelected. That'd be in here somewhere. You can see that the conservative support actually had passed the Liberal support running up to that 2019 election. That was Andrew Scheer. And then just fell off a cliff. No one liked him. And then, of course, Trudeau gets that big minority government. And then, once again, Conservatives pass. Aaron O'Toole becomes a leader come 2021. And then, whoa, right off a cliff again. So, every time the election comes, the Conservatives shoot themselves right in the foot. And you'll see, so Pierre Poilievre right here at 40, right, this line, this 40%, you can see that the popularity under Andrew Scheer was not very far off from that. In fact, some polls did put him at 40 in the summer of 2019. The election was in the fall of 2019. And so you can see how, dramatic his decline was. That was, again, that was Aaron O'Toole. And I don't even know what happened here. That was Pierre Poilievre's. This was the Freedom Convoy, I think. February 21, I think. Maybe? Yeah. And so, this is when Aaron O'Toole started kind of distancing himself from the convoy, and so that cratered. Then they kicked Aaron O'Toole out of the party. Yeah, I hear you. Jack Layton. Jack Layton is a legendary New Democrat leader. He's the one who, you'll notice this part where the red line falls under. So yeah, this is the 20... Oh, sorry. This... I'm not sure which one the 2015 line is. I think it's... Oh, maybe it's this one? No, I think it's this one. Yeah, they don't have before 2015, so Jack Layton was the leader way before 2015, where when Stephen Harper won his majority government in 2011, the Liberals got reduced to third place, and the NDP became the official opposition. That was their best result they've ever had, and that was under... Was that under Tom Mulcair? No, it was Jack Layton who led them there, but then he passed away very soon after. Tom Mulcair then became the leader, and he was pretty ineffective for most of that. Tom Mulcair would have been the leader through all of this. Jagmeet Singh was elected somewhere in here, between 18 and 20. Jack was actually, Jack is the kind of person that could draw a neutral voter to the NDP. Because under Jagmeet Singh, they've just become this very weird... I don't even know how to describe them politically. It's just they lost their direction. They lost standing for anything and just became the TikTok generation where it's ooh, what's trendy right now? We're just going to take this side because it's the progressive virtue signaling side, without ever actually thinking through. You can even see this blip right here in the 2019 election where, the aftermath of the 2019 election, where the Green Party briefly was just as popular as the NDP, which would be monumental. I mean, if the Green Party ever overtook the NDP, that would be something. And you can see the start of the PPC here. They, of course, hit their heyday in the during the COVID elections. But that's, in my opinion, it's the best they're ever going to get, because that was the worst that Canada ever was. And you can see they've sunk ever since, and they're not coming back. The Bloc, on the other hand, it's hard to explain what's going on with the Bloc in this line. I would say that the Bloc gets better when the Liberals start doing worse. I think you could almost trace a negative correlation with, the highest of the highs for the Liberals is the lowest of the lows for the Bloc. And roughly speaking, you see the Bloc kind of gets more popular here as the Liberals start sinking over this time. Same here, they're doing pretty well here. as the Liberals are just in a free fall right now. Um, but again, like we've been here before. Like if you look into the run up in the election, you can see the blue line. Andrew Scheer passed the Liberals in popular support. He actually outdid the Liberals in popular support in that 2019 election. But because of the way the seats and the regional representation breaks down, he got nowhere near the levers of power. It was not even close. The Quebecs have a hard time in Quebec. The Conservatives have a hard time in Quebec because Quebec is one of the weirdest political scale. It's weird. They are the most fiscally progressive, socially conservative province. And I'll repeat that in case you didn't quite hear it. The most fiscally progressive, socially conservative province. They spend money like no one's business. They are a money black hole. And then they have these like traditional Quebec values. They're quite, they're the, and of course the Tories. That used to be that's British slang if I recall correctly. Wasn't the Tories old slang for like a British redcoat? Or just a Brit in general? I'm not sure. Yeah, there's your answer right there. Quebec hates the Brits. They're not even on board with the king. Well, they hate the king. They were not big fans of the queen, but the queen was so popular that they didn't really press the issue. But now that King Charles is on the throne, I'm sure Quebec does not like him very much. Not that it really matters or impacts anything. Yeah, the big mistake that the Scheer Conservatives made in 2019 is they spent so much money in Quebec thinking the same thing you did. Like, well, no, Quebec should be pretty conservative. No, they kind of conservative in a way. Nope, nope, not one bit. They hate the Conservatives. The only place the Conservatives do well is right up on the U.S. border on the south side of the St. Lawrence. They get nothing in the cities. Those are Liberal strongholds. Quebec City, Montreal. Go north, that's NDP territory. And of course, Bloc Québécois just owns anything outside of the big cities. So, that's... yeah, I'm not sure what Tory means. Anyways, we're 9 o'clock here. Whoops. No, I'm 8. I just realized I haven't turned my computer over. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. Anyways, it's 8 o'clock here. And that means Nick Ricada is going to be on it a little bit. This is the thing that's going to determine if we see an election next year. And if that election is coming, it's going to be in the spring of 2024, I think. The only reason I think that is... one second. No. Sorry, I'm trying to look something up. Yes, the British Columbia provincial election will be in the fall of 2024. And the same with the Saskatchewan. The Saskatchewan provincial election is also in the fall of 2024. And I don't like the British Columbia has a pretty good functioning coalition government right now, so I don't see them calling an early election. And then the Saskatchewan has a pretty clear majority government with the Sask party, so I don't see them dropping the early either. So the federal government doesn't like stepping on provincial elections. It's a huge distraction for them. So the best time for an election next year is going to be the spring of 24. And like the article is taking a, the article is kind of speculating here that if that red line keeps falling and that orange line starts going way up, Jagmeet Singh is the reason that Justin Trudeau is still in power. He, with that supply and confidence agreement. But the moment Jagmeet Singh thinks he can he can pounce on, his electoral advantage and beat Trudeau, he's going to pull the plug on that thing. Like, it is, Trudeau has announced that they're not going to handle the pharmacare thing, the national pharmacare plan, until next year. So that's a huge promise that they made for that supply and confidence agreement is being broken. I'm just, like, when I see this, I just like, well, we've been here before. We've, look at this rise from under Andrew Scheer, right? We've been in this place before. The Liberals, they weren't quite as low as they are now, but they have, they have cratered before. They've been down here in the 20s. And then they just staged this miraculous comeback because Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Atlantic Canada, they're just like, well, we just hate conservatives. We hate Alberta and everything that Alberta stands for. And Alberta loves conservatives. And Saskatchewan loves conservatives. Like, in the 2019 election, you have to remember, there was not a single red riding between Winnipeg and Vancouver. Go look at a Canadian map. Those cities are really far apart. And there was not, from the Fraser Valley to the Red River, was not a single red riding, except for one up in, I think, the Northwest Territories went Liberal. But and then there was like 3 NDP ridings somewhere in the prairies, because Edmonton Strathcona is weird. And then there's like I want to say like the Cranbrook area went NDP. And then there might be like one riding. Oh yeah, the Northern Manitoba riding, federal riding went NDP. So, yeah, but from Red River to Fraser Valley, there wasn't a single Liberal seat in 2019. It still didn't matter. Still didn't matter. Trudeau won the election. So, that's why the West wants out. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up here, guys. I've been going for only an hour and a half. Not bad. Not terrible. I'll wrap it up here. Let me see if we can send you guys off to someone. This is the preferred PM. Don't read too much into that. As much as people do vote for the leader, the party and the leader kind of go hand in hand. So, but this does lag behind. So as the party's at 40, Pierre will eventually get to 40. He's just going to be about a month or two behind. And that's that. Yeah, appreciate it, Pat, man. Thanks for hanging out. Shout out to Legal Mindset. Hey, when you're leaving comments on Andrew's videos, they take what you want to see into consideration. And I know Andrew has extended an invite for me to come do some videos with him, but tell him that's the content that you want to see, and that helps these things move along, because all these legal people that are hanging out on the internet, they're really good guys in real life. Oh yeah, Tory means pro-monarchy. Well, there you go. There you go. So pro-monarchy would be not Quebec. Not safe for Quebec. NSFQ. I should put a Quebec trigger warning. Oh god, I have a Stream Deck right here too. I can absolutely do something up. I just gotta find a time, right? To that end, let me take a quick minute to show myself and how people can support me. I'm 164 subscribers away from being able to take super chats and start monetizing my content. Because at 500 is when you can open up super chats now. So if we can get there, that'd be amazing. I do have a website called lawstinlaw.ca, LAWSTINLAW.ca. There is a encrypted donation form. You can make anonymous donations on it if you want. I don't save your credit card data or any of your financial data. That is all processed through a secure third party, and kind of like equivalent to PayPal. And you can leave, you can support my content there. Leave me a message. I'll read it on the next stream. I can also no, I can't bring it up right now because this browser, I have the browser's frame frozen so I don't end up inadvertently doxing anything. So yeah, I can't pull my website up, but it's in the, I think it's in the description. See it there. I can throw it in the chat as well. So other than that, let me have a quick look who is currently online. Who you guys want to go check out? Joe's about to go online in about half an hour. Good logic. Megan Fox is live. She's doing the Kowalski case. Sean with Potentially Criminal is online. What do you guys say? It's up to you. It's viewer's choice. What do you guys want to go check out? You want to check out Megan Fox, or you want to go see Potentially Criminal? I'm just gonna try and experiment with the the raid function. So, nope. Oh well, it's all right. I don't send you over to Sean and Potentially Criminal. He's talking about perverts, so we'll send you over there. And remember, guys, Afuera! Let me see. I haven't actually done this before. I gotta figure out how to do that. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, I'm boomering it. Oh well. Oh, I gotta go in the studio, I think. Where's my studio? Dang it! I saw Legal Mindset do this. This is annoying. Oh no, I think I found it. Yeah, I think I found it. No. Why didn't I find it? Dang it. Maybe I don't have the ability because I'm not monetized? Well, that sucks. Stream settings. No, I don't have the option. Oh, that sucks. Oh well. Oh well. Yeah, go check out whoever you want. There is dang it. Well, that sucks. I gotta check that out, I guess, and see why it doesn't do that. Oh well. Why do I have automatic stuff turned on? I should turn that off. Oh well. Anyways, guys, I'll have to kill it. Additional settings. I really thought I could do that. Well. Alright, guys. That's it. That wasn't the most graceful ending, but anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. Consider liking the stream if you enjoyed it. I appreciate I appreciate everyone who comes out and watches these videos. I have a lot of fun making them, so I hope to see you again next time around. I wish I could do like a normal schedule, but law school law school doesn't let me have a normal schedule like most people. So, uh, remember everyone, stay frosty.